Hello, my name's Nikki Ottavi and I work for the Government Archives and Preservation Unit within Libraries Tasmania. I feel the need to say that although this has had a very emotional impact on me, I have got something wrong with my eyes, so if you see me dabbing, it's because of a virus, not for dramatic effect. So the Tasmanian Police and the Port Arthur Massacre. I think we all remember what we were doing when the Port Arthur Massacre happened in April 1996. I remember being at home ironing when we heard the breaking news that there'd been an incident at Port Arthur. Some people had been shot. We were shocked by the news and wondered what had happened, but we went about our day. A short time later, the news reported more people had been shot, and with each report, the number of fatalities grew. By late afternoon, we were scanning the news, trying to make sense of what was happening. By early evening, we could think of little else. We could not comprehend the story unfolding before us. The gunman was still at large, details were scarce, and we all wanted to know what was going on. All eyes were on Port Arthur. The first calls for help were to the Tasmanian Police. In 2009, the Tasmanian Police transferred their records to the Tasmanian Archive and Heritage Office, or TAHO as it was called then. I can still remember the day it arrived. There was talk amongst TAHO staff about how we had never received a set of records like this in our time as archivists, and how we didn't really want to open any of the boxes. We knew it contained videos and photographs. I was duty archivist on the day and registered it into our system. It became known as Transfer 2900. At the time, we decided it would sit on the shelves where we worked out what to do. There were some attempts at the time by the Manager of Government Record Keeping to work out a way of transferring the files from the 3¼ floppies to a digital format and locking them down securely so they could not be accessed due to the sensitivity of the subject matter. He discussed this with our IT people, but it all seemed a little too difficult and was not resolved. Other tasks took over and nothing was progressed. Why did it sit on the shelf for a few years? I have mentioned the floppies, but what about the other formats? There were obvious challenges here too. VHS, Betacam, audio cassettes, photographs, CDs, DVDs, 35mm negatives, film strips, microcassettes, and even glass plate negatives. And I did ask the police why in 1996 do we have glass plate negatives, and they couldn't tell me because the forensic people were no longer in the department. But if anybody knows, I'll be very happy at the end if you come up and chat to me about that, because we still don't quite know why. But they are there. The other challenge was the content of the records. How do we deal with records we know may cause distress to your staff? How do you migrate records and check the quality of the newly digitised record when the subject matter contained horrible scenes and you shouldn't look at them? How do we protect staff from the graphic nature of the work, protect the integrity of the records, and still ensure the records preserve the memory of what happened? So many challenges. So it wasn't surprising the records sat on the shelf for a while. The Tasmanian Police records of the Port Arthur Massacre will be open to the public in 2071. But if we left them on the shelf, what would they look like in 2071? In early 2016, we decided it was time to deal with the fragile formats. Coincidentally, with the 20th anniversary of the Port Arthur Massacre approaching, Tasmanian Police were beginning to receive right to information requests from journalists. Tasmanian Police asked to retrieve certain documents and then found that they couldn't view some of the records because of old software. One record was a PowerPoint presentation the police had put together for training purposes. They found a computer within their department which still had the old software installed and updated the presentation, saved it to a USB and returned it to us. Their records manager wrote to us and stated her concern the information would be lost and what were we going to do about it. I was able to say we were concerned too and we were working on a strategy to deal with the issues. The time had come to act. I decided to volunteer. I had been involved in the requests from Tasmanian Police to retrieve certain records, and I was familiar with the listing of the records. Looking back now, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I started. Of course, I started with the paper, because paper is easy. Almost immediately, I noticed a sense of anxiety in the way the records were put together. This is certainly not a criticism, just an observation, and it was completely understandable to me considering the overwhelming task Tasmanian Police were dealing with. There was little order dealing with why this was the case. There was little order in their file numbers. There was lots of duplication. They wanted to keep everything, including software disks to download appropriate forms and the software manuals as well. These were also given file numbers. Moving on to other formats, I found VHS and beta cams, audio tapes and microcassettes of the same police interviews, as well as typed paper transcripts. I emailed the records manager at police and explained this. What was an original, what was a copy? The records manager spoke to one of the senior police officers who had been part of the Port Arthur task force set up at the time. His reply was just keep everything. Thankfully, the records manager continued the conversation, and with the trust she had built with her department, she was able to explain how the duplication wasn't necessary and allay any fears the information would be lost. The reply back to me was the VHS or the beta cam were the originals, and we would keep the paper transcripts. The other formats were not required. It became very clear this transfer of records could not just be done by one single archivist. We had to assemble a team. The records manager of the police department had already been a great help, but we needed others. So we gathered together archivists, collection managers, senior police, forensic personnel, technical staff and digital experts. We used the team to deal with the migration of the VHS and beta cams to a digital format. Almost all videos had big stickers with "Warning may include graphic images" written on them. We could tell from the descriptions we could not let our staff in our reprographics team transfer these to a digital format. So we set up a meeting with the Tasmanian Police and asked them if it was possible for us to bring equipment to their offices for staff who were trained to view graphic evidence and had appropriate psychological support in place. We went through senior channels and we found the Tasmanian Police very understanding of our concern for our staff. They offered the services of their digital evidence unit to transfer the videos. We gathered together the equipment. We bought a high-end, low-usage Super VHS and a Betacam machine. And I think the VHS had to come all the way from Germany or someplace like that. The VHS was a great buy, but the Betacam was useless, and in the end we just kept it for parts. That's what happens when you deal with old technology. As there were only a few Betacams, we took down the one and only machine we always use. We also supplied an analogue to digital video converter, along with the usual computer, cables and hard drives. It took the digital evidence unit 3 months to transfer all the videos in between their other jobs. Considering how busy they are, we were very grateful they undertook such a big task for us. We had a few little hiccups, but I found the system support team within Libraries Tasmania really helpful, and I would only have to send an email and somebody would visit the digital evidence unit and do what was needed. The police not only transferred the videos, but they also gave us some indication of the duration of the videos and the quality, and I was able to transcribe this information into our archival management system. Of the 117 videos we took to the digital evidence unit, they transferred all except for 35. They were having trouble with these. These videos were of interviews and important because of the audio rather than the visual. They did not contain any graphic footage. Being interviews, the videos were lengthy and would have ended up as huge digital files. The person in charge of the unit was also being seconded to another area, so he asked me if it was possible for us to take over. We suspect now that there may not have been enough space on the hard drive, so every time they tried to do a video, the process stalled. With the assurance the videos were not graphic, I called in our reprographic staff. They were okay with transferring these. Our reprographic staff had already transferred some of the audio cassettes and would use the same technique. After checking the audio was okay, they turned down the sound so that they did not have to hear anything being said. Although I was told, and I certainly experienced this myself, that just listening to a few words could still cause a little anxiety. But it was manageable, and in the interest of getting the job done, we did what we had to do.